In 17th century, Ottoman Empire witnessed severe economic, socio-political and military crises in the capital and the provinces that originated in the prolonged military campaigns against the Habsburgs in the west and the Safavids in the east and the Jalali rebels in the Anatolian countryside. The socio-political and the military instability of this era is such a prevalent problem. A total of 6 sultans were dethroned and 2 of them were killed as a result of crisis. For a group of preachers, teachers and intellectuals known as Kadızadelis, the reason behind this crisis was a spiritual deviation from the original social, economic and moral norms of Islam that they trace back to the time of Prophet Muhammad and his 4 Rashidun caliphs. And the Kadızadelis aimed, therefore, to revitalize a particular time when the Islamic belief was practiced through the personal guidance of Prophet Muhammad and his companions to overcome ongoing severe crises and challenges that the Ottoman Empire faced. In recent decades, Kadızadelis movement has been studied through the various aspects, both on the institutional stage and the individual level. This paper offers an examination on one overlooked imperial personage who was at the heart of the 17th century crisis involving the Kadızadelis controversy. This figure was Husayn ibn Fikri ibn Korkmaz, as known as Manzade, only surviving son of the prominent provincial ruler Emir Fahrettin. Throughout his career in the Ottoman imperial organization, Manzade witnessed almost all significant political, religious, military, as well as the economic unrest within the Ottoman Empire between 1635 and 1697. In this respect, this paper offers an examination of 17th century Puritanical movement of Kadızadelis through the eyes of an Ottoman-Druze bureaucrat and intellectual Manzade. This paper is actually divided into two sections. First, explores the formation as well as transformation of Manzade from a provincial ruling family, Ma'anid of the Mount Lebanon, into a loyal imperial persona. This section also deals with intellectuals' concern and attempts in Ottoman history writing that will help us understand Husayn Manzade's intellectual engagement with the Kadızadelis movement, which will be examined in the second part of this paper. And overall, this paper mainly contends that an Ottoman-Druze bureaucrat, Husayn Manzade, was highly interested in Kadızadelis' ideas and practices. Not only did he share his observation with a contemporary official Ottoman historian, but Manzade also presents his intellectual concerns over Kadızadelis in his overlooked literary account, Kitab-ı Temyiz bil Muhatarat. Making of Manzade. The first phase of Husayn Manzade's life took place in the context of his father's political strife for the provincial leadership. As a patriarch of House of Man, Fahrettin materialized a geopolitical enlargement of Israel towards the Bilad Kisravan, Safed, Sidon, and Beirut in the first decade of the 17th century. Emir Fahrettin also established a complex of network, alliances and patronage both in the Ottoman Empire and the several Italian city-states. And between 1590s and 1630s, political networks of Emir Fahrettin enabled him to attain much more power, not against his rival emirs, but also against the Ottoman imperial government. The mother of Husayn Manzade was the daughter of the powerful local Turkmen household, Sefes, one of the Fahrettin's most hostile families in Ottoman Syria. Soon after the emir returned to the Mount Lebanon from Italy, Emir Fahrettin married with her in order to ease tension with the Sefes. In 1624, Manzade was appointed to the governorship of Aslun, but in practice, his power was in the hands of his father, Emir Fahrettin. The appointments of his son to the critical position within the empire, within the provincial administration, served Emir Fahrettin's prolonged strategy of eliminating of his local rivals and expanding the authority of Ma'an family. In this respect, it is important to note that, thanks to his father's relentless political maneuvers, the early provincial careers of young Manzade allowed him to become acquainted with the provincial politics, nationalism, and the political negotiation that would help him in his prolonged career in Ottoman palace. The second phase of Hüseyin Manzade's life began with the tragic year of 1635, and ended up his appointment to the ambassadorship of India in 1656. On the eve of Ottoman massive campaign against the Safavids in 1635, provincial army was sent against Emir Fahrettin and compelled him to surrender with his surviving sons, Mesud and Husayn. Immediately upon their arrival to the capital, Mesud and Husayn was sent to the auxiliary imperial school, Galatasaray, where they spent less than a month. And on April 13 and 1635, upon the imperial order of Murad IV, Emir Fahrettin was executed in the capital alongside his eldest surviving son, Mesud. Unlike his elder brother, Husayn was accommodated by the imperial school and Derin Humayun, where he met a specific age requirement for their admission. Manzade Hüseyin was immediately promoted to the Department of Has-Oda, Privy Chamber, in Derin Humayun, and in a decade, Manzade became the personal confidant secretary, Katib-i-Sır of the Sultan Ibrahim. As Katib-i-Sır, Manzade was expected to write down the Sultanic correspondence and receive public petition to the Sultan during the Friday ceremonies and submit this petition to the Sultan himself in the palace. He was also charged of the royal library, and upon the royal request, Katib-i-Sır monitored the fiscal, military and tax register and reported the result to the Sultan himself. Besides holding this position, Katib-i-Sır, Manzade also appointed as the Hazine Ketulası, the chamberlain of the royal treasury. In December 1651, remarkably, Manzade was become one of those exceptional officials who were in the charge in both positions at the same time. He was to serve as Katib-i-Sır and as well as the Hazine Ketulası for 5 years. And in Ottoman bureaucracy, as we know, Hazine Ketulası was one of the most important figures who was in charge of bestowing Sultanic patronage known as the Ehli Gref, and nearly 2,000 artisans, intellectuals, and scholars and poets working with the imperial palace. He was also responsible for the imperial archives of Islamic relics and the precious ornaments, and during the time peace and war, Hazine Ketulası used to accompany with the Sultan. In April 1656, Manzade Hüseyin was appointed to the position of the Kapıcıbaşı, head of the imperial palace doorkeepers. In the imperial palace, in 17th century, office of Kapıcıbaşıları oversees the ceremonial, informative, and diplomatic relations of the imperial government with the outside world. In a couple months, his appointment to Kapıcıbaşıları, late August 1656, Manzade was appointed as ambassador of the Mughal Empire, to the Mughal Empire. In 3 years, he completed his mission in India and returned to the capital. Soon after he returned to the capital as an ambassador of India, he apparently retired from all his bureaucratic positions and dedicated his life to the intellectual activities. So, how did all this happen? How did an early modern Ottoman transform a former, powerful, rebel and provincial ruler, Emir Fahrettin's 13 years old son, into an royal imperial persona? Firstly, imperial school and Derin Humayun played a role in molding Manzade's character into an imperial persona. Though there is an inadequate information about his previous education, we see Manzade's entry to the most important department of the imperial palace, Has-Oda, shows that he must receive some tutoring from the scholars and intellectuals during his early life in Ottoman Syria. The life in Derin Humayun relied not only on strict hierarchical, practice-oriented teachings, but also vivid cultural, intellectual, artistic interaction that contributed a sort of solidarity and friendship between the pages. The inclusive nature of the imperial palace school may have helped Manzade Hüseyin get accustomed to Ottoman imperial culture and lessen his resentment over the tragic execution of his father and siblings. For instance, well-known 17th century Ottoman traveler Evliya Çelebi was one of the Manzade's close friends, and he portrays Manzade Hüseyin as his comrade, ayaktaş, in the friendly affiliated environment of the palace. And the day and night, they practice music and singing the songs of Husayn Baykara in the so-called courtroom, Meshkane, so next to the imperial bath. The marriage with a hierarchical concubine or servant was another factor that played a significant role in consolidation as well as preservation of the loyalty of Mahmuzade Husayn to the Ottoman dynastic rule. According to endowment record from Topkapı Palace archives, Mahmuzade Husayn get married with the Saraylı Sehhab Kadın, who was the known Kutucu Ustası, master of caretaking of the Queen Mother Hatice Turhan Sultan, which is highly prestigious and powerful position in the imperial hierarchy. The marriages between the palace officials were not for the sake of sustaining the dynastic loyalty, but also offered his career servants a promising future in the imperial empire politics. In fact, in the case of Husayn Mahmuzade marrying Saraylı Sehhab Hanım, undoubtedly reinforced his attachment to the imperial dynasty and consolidated his position, especially in the domain of the imperial politics. Crises and challenges in the 17th century would be observed through another factor that had impact on the character building of Husayn Mahmuzade, who had to survive amid the bloody rebellions which frequently demanded the palace execution of the palace officials. During his life in Ottoman capital between 1635 and 1697, Mahmuzade Husayn witnessed the 4 dethronements of the Ottoman sultans, including the execution of the Sultan Ibrahim as a result of the series of uprisings. The protests and rebellions against the imperial regulations on the fiscal, social, cultural, and military matters appeared to the everyday life in the capital between the 1620s and the 1650s. In this period, as we see in the 9 months chronicle, the Mahmuzade Husayn was at the heart of most of the crisis, both an agent and witness. Naima frequently acknowledged Mahmuzade's invaluable contribution by providing the terrific anecdotes, in-depth information about the related historical topics, and particularly in the reigns of Ibrahim I and Mehmed IV. In the time of great bureaucratic purge, following the execution of the Queen Mother Kösem Mahpeyker in September 1651, it may not be a coincidence that Mahmuzade Husayn was promoted to 3 months after the Ezan Khazine Kapıdası in December 1651, while keeping his position as Katip Sir. As a client of the Queen Mother Hatice Turhan Sultan, Mahmuzade may have played a role in averting the plot of the Queen Mother Kösem Sultan, who wanted to eliminate the power of Hatice Turhan Sultan, overthrowing his reigning son, and thanks to his contribution and loyalty, Mahmuzade Husayn was promoted to serve the both critical officials for 5 years, which were highly unusual promotions for the Ottoman palace tradition. And Mahmuzade turned crisis into an opportunity and became one of the most influential power brokers in the Ottoman imperial politics. During the Cretan War, apparent cause of the uprising was ingredients of imperial soldiers and some administrative misstatements. However, according to Mahmuzade Husayn, there were some notable analysts in Ottoman elites who secretly provoked the rebellion. And this group had suffered under the imperial policy and deprived of its resources and funds. Therefore, they handed the 30 or 40 names of the palace officers to the rebels and demanded the Sultan to execute all of them on the list. And the rebels, at the end, hanged the palace officers on the Platonist trees, from the Platonist trees. In this terrific story, Naima shows that Mahmuzade Husayn established a personal network of trustworthy clients in the capital that alerted him to the uprising. Though we don't know whether he was a powerful palace aga Husayn Mahmuzade's name was on the list or not, his network relation may have also helped him to cross his name off the list. During the course of his life in Ottoman Palace in Istanbul, one may ask how Husayn Mahmuzade identified himself, in what ways he engaged with the legacy of his family as an imperial persona. And we have 2 surviving manuscripts, penned or edited by Husayn Mahmuzade himself, Kitab al-Tamyiz and Qut al-Qulub. In the preface of the both manuscripts, Mahmuzade introduced himself to the readers as Husayn ibn Ph.D, with Al-Ma'ruf ibn Ma'an. He explicitly testified he was known as Ibn Ma'an, and his epithet indicates that throughout his palace career, Ma'anzadeh was affiliated with his familial title. It was not simply distinguish his name Husayn from the several other synonyms in the imperial palace, but it is rather related to the Ottoman imperial tradition that allowed the Umera origin pages to bear his familial title, unlike the Devshirme origin pages. However, in intellectual circles, Ma'anzadeh, also known as Bureaucrat of a Druze origin, and his name was written Ibn Ma'an at Druze in the most of copy of his book in the contemporary libraries of the capital. Moreover, Naima explained in a different way by implying Ma'anzadeh was called his familial ruling title, Emir or Mir, and by saying this, Naima emphasized not only Ma'anzadeh's familial background but also his political title, inherited from his family. On the other hand, Ma'anzadeh appears to take and circulated narratives on his family and his father found in the Ottoman historiography seriously. In 19th century historian Joseph von Hammers assert that Ma'anzadeh and some Umera origin figures were interested in history due to the tragic ends of their fathers. By taking the Hammers assertion a step further, this paper argues that Ma'anzadeh may have attempted to revise contemporaneous historical accounts of his familial legacy by writing his own historical account and sharing it alongside the oral testaments with the first Ottoman imperial historian, Vakanimiz Mustafa Naima. For instance, almost all 17th century Ottoman historical accounts used to portray Ph.D. as Druze and the factious, irreligious, and the rebel and conspirator who attempt to collaborate with the enemy to invade the holy city of Jerusalem. Naima appears to challenge this contemporaneous perception on Emir Fahreddin by pointing his prestigious familial legacy as coming from highly distinguished Arab lineage. Naima also overlooks the negative historiographic connotation on Druze and Calvis. Instead, he propagates the notion Fahreddin was a noble prince and warrior who ruled the Druze and Calvis and the heterodox tribes. By claiming so, Naima may have been under the influence of his patron, Husayn Ma'anzadeh. Throughout the Naima's chronic, Husayn Ma'anzadeh also appears to be not only highly interested in Kadızadelis movement, the Puritanical movement, but very critical of their ideas and practice. In the question of why Husayn Ma'anzadeh was highly interested in Kadızadelis movement can be explained in three yet interrelated reasons. First and foremost, the Kadızadelis movement influenced the factionalism in the imperial politics. To eliminate the Grand Queen Mother's Kösem Sultan powers in the imperial politics, whose power was mainly relied on the Sufi supported the Janissaries, the Queen Mother, her rival Queen Mother, Hatice Turhan Sultan, trusted the Palace Agas including Husayn Ma'anzadeh and welcomed the Kadızadelis, who were the arch enemies of the Sufis. This power struggle enabled Kadızadelis to increase their influence among the palace pages and regularly sermons in the palace. During the lengthy palace career as a Katib student as Neketulası, Ma'anzadeh was also in charge of dynasty patronage over the hundreds of thousands of intellectuals and scholars. In this context, the factionalism and dynasty patronage, Ma'anzadeh had to work with the Kadızadelis and even establish a close relationship and the Kerem-i Ülfet with some well-known Kadızadelis figures. The second was his interest may be explained rivalries in imperial appointments. As Madame Zufi says, confrontation between the Kadızadelis and Sufis was also a matter of appointments and imperial mosque and foundation. In this context, Ma'anzadeh had engaged with bureaucratic competition with the Kadızadelis supported figures in imperial politics. To illustrate this, in Naima prose, Ma'anzadeh seemingly attempts to justify his appointment as an Ottoman ambassador to Mughal India by undermining his Kadızadelis supported predecessors with diplomatic and intellectual qualification for the mission. Third reason may have been related to his intellectual worldview. And throughout his contemporary accounts, Manzade appears to be Sufi-minded and erudite and a bibliophile who was descended grammatically with Kadızadelis practice and ideas. The controversial issues posed by Kadızadelis Sufi conflicts have been much occupied Manzade's intellectual agenda. Significant portion of the Kadızadelis narrative from the Naima Chronicles derived from the oral testimony of Manzade's. In fact, Manzade's critical depictions of the Kadızadelis overshadow other moderate representation of the movement. Despite his friendship with the Kadızadelis living figure, Manzade nevertheless does not hold back to correct the Kadızadelis ideas and practices in social, religious, and intellectual spheres in the Ottoman Empire, and he portrays them as murai, hypocrites, and mufid taasub, extreme leaders, and well-known aesthetics, and one step further encouraging their hypocritical action and practices in the sector. Manzade accused Kadızadelis committing a range of wrongdoings in the sector, though they forbade the people to do the same in publicly. In the Naima text, Manzade went a step further and accused one of the leading figures, Ahmed, of overlooking his sexual wrongdoings against his young male servant, but in public, Ahmed condemns smoking tobacco, wearing silk clothes, and growing long moustache, and perceiving the Sufi burnings practice as cardinal crimes. On the other hand, Manzade reflects an intellectual concern of Kadızadelis and overlooked literary account of Kitab-ı-Temiz. The book is built with 26 chapters and praises reason, gentleness, forbearance, consultation, and accumulation of wealth and sickness. Kitab-ı-Temiz was dedicated to the Grand Vizier Amrzade Hüseyin Pasha. The circulation of the book shows that Kitab-ı-Temiz fil Muhadarat became the bestseller book, which had been largely copied and distributed in 1690s, imperial mosque libraries and the private collection in Istanbul. In adapted literature, genre of muhadarat was known as the art of quotation. In recent studies show that in the 17th century, Ottoman intellectuals were interested in genre of muhadarat, were nearly scholarly, who high interest in rhetorics and the historiography. In fact, it must not be coincidence that art of quotation and muhadarat became popular during the 17th century age of oratory. As we know, Kadızadeli and Sufi leaders were known as being very good at oratory to gain the mass support, to navigate public opinion, and to mention the ruling elites, to get attention of the ruling elites and to secure the promotion to the lucrative post. I argue that Hüseyin Manzade engaged with the contemporary controversial methods put by Kadızadelis through a particular path, contemporary popular genre of muhadarat. Thus, the Kitab-ı-Temiz fil Muhadarat is not merely a literary account, includes variety of Quranic verses, hadiths, maxims, poems for the sake of literary enjoyment. It may have been related to the very present religious, ethical, socio-political, and pedagogical matters raised by Kadızadelis movement. Manzade appears to express his intellectual concerns within the traditional framework of muhadarat genre, making the past speak on his behalf and artfully inserting his command what was said before. For Manzade, every shortness is harmful, every access is corrupt. To knowing the reason behind the matters helps anyone to distinguish or disentangle good from the wrong, and they escape the traps of brevity and excess of inaction. To doing so, one could survive the pitfalls of what he loves and acquire refinement and revision. In conclusion, I firmly believe that the story of an Ottoman-Druze and Bureaucrat and intellectual Manzade may help us understand the nature of the dynamics of the Kadızadelis movement and adopt a broader perspective of Ottoman identity formation, the transformative environment of the imperial palace, religious, intellectual controversies, crisis, rebellions, factionalism that pervaded the 17th century Ottoman world.
وإبراهيم العاقل من السويداء، وعلى معرفة وثيقة بسلطان بمنصور سلطان الأطرش وبوالد سلطان الأطرش. محرر بمجلة الضحى. سؤالي الأول للدكتور مايكل: ما سبب برأيكم ما سبب نجاح السلطان في إنقاذ ابنه من براثن الشيشكي وفشل هاشم الإحداثي في إنقاذ ابنه عدنان من طرف السراج من حكم يعني طغيان. السؤال الثاني للأستاذ الدكتور فكري: لما تناولتم سيرة حسين فخر الدين وهو شخصية غير مؤثرة في التاريخ الدرزي، بل هو شخصية هامشية يعني متنازل عن انتمائه توحيدي الدرزي. حسين فخر الدين كتابه التمييز يدل على ذلك. لماذا لم تتناولوا شخصية فخر الدين نفسه أو شخصية علي فخر الدين الذي قاد مقاومة باسلة ضد العثمانيين وقاتلهم في معركة غدير الخان وقتل 12,000 جندي من رجاله ولم يعد سوى 500 معهم وقتل هو أيضا. يعني هذا يجعل تناولكم للمسألة الدرزية تناولا هامشيا بالاستناد إلى ملاحظات الصباح أيضا.
Hi, my name is Denise Abakir. Your Dr. Michael, I have a question. It was very interesting for me when you were speaking about the Druze being a part of the revolution for independence, and that they saw themselves, the French saw them, they called it the Druze movement, while they didn't see themselves as such. It was seen as an Arab revolution. How did they see themselves within their larger community? Because that has changed from an outsider's perspective. And I'm really curious as how did they see themselves as a part of the greater Arab Muslim population, but that they were just slightly different? Did they see themselves as a very independent community? Did they lead in order that they're not marginalized? So they felt maybe safe in leading the revolution, so they wouldn't be marginalized. Thank you.
Yeah, this is the question my wife is also asking, why I'm going to go another. I'm a storyteller and professional storyteller. I have been educated for 2 decades to be an historian, and my professors are here. I'm very privileged to be speaking in their presence. But I can say, I'm going to write the story of Ph.D. And this summer I was in Italy, in Florence and Venice. I found nearly 20,000 documents related to this family. So I'm going to work on this. So I'm going to write not the Ph.D. but his family. I'm going to write the history of Ma'an, which is very important for the Ottoman himself, not only Ottoman, but for the Mediterranean history and the global history. I'm going to contextualize the Ma'an family, this Druze family, in the global history by writing their story based on the Italian, Arabic, and the Ottoman sources. And I'm following the steps of my dear professor Husayn, who was always encouraging me to do so. But let me say for this Ph.D. is an extremely important fact. But his family is also important. I'm going to write, do you know the daughter of Ph.D. who was killed by also the Ottomans, and she is highly interested in chemistry. And I'm going to write her story that connects to the Galileo with the Ottomans and many stuff. And these are and I'm going to put in the women's in this stage, because historiography are man-oriented. So I'm going to write the women's of Man family and the women's of Europe. So this is my project. So I'm really fascinated with the story of Man and Ottomans. As I said, I'm a storyteller and a professional one. I'm going to write it in an academic way, and the next generation and our generation will benefit it. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a great question. It's a sad question. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that I heard from Ustaz Mansour and from his family that he was able to continue to live in Syria because of the prestige of his father, despite the fact that people who were involved in the earlier governments were forced to leave the country. I think there was there was an arrangement, or an unspoken arrangement, that he had a certain limit on what he could do and say, and other people were so Adnan al-Tasi was, as I say, sentenced to death. I think wrongly for colluding with the Hashemites in Iraq. This was the charge anyway. He was an intellectual and a person who wrote a lot of books, and important books in Arabic, in opposition to military rule. And so he was, I think, an important person who's mostly forgotten. And his father died in 1960. So he was able to leave. He was able to not be executed by the intervention of Jamal al-Nasser. But he was not able to return to Syria. So this is because his father was not around any longer, I would say, to protect him. But I'm speculating. I mean, it may be that I'm mistaken in my interpretation. But it's an important story. I'm interested in. Thank you very much for the question. Of course, there's no agreement about what constitutes the there's no agreement about what constitutes the community's best interests. And so it seemed that in the early period, even in the period of the First World War, Sultan and members of the family were arguing, sometimes in writing, in published letters, about whether entering into an alliance with the Arab Revolt was a good idea. Sultan believed this. Some of his cousins said, this is crazy, we have to stay with the Ottoman state. And later on, these same divisions broke down along the orientation toward the French mandate. So some people said, we are Syrians, and we should fight with Syria for the independence of Syria. And other people said, no, we have to protect our community, and so we have to collaborate, or not collaborate exactly, but to cooperate with France. So there were very bitter arguments about this issue of what really constituted, what the community, whether the community was something small and insular that needed to be protected, or whether the community was part of the larger Arab region, and where the interests, the corresponding interests, individually and collectively lay. So these are debates that are still not decided, and there are still, of course, disagreements along these lines until today.